But no state worth its salt can accept that kind of terror attack. So I think punishment is necessary, and I think India will exercise that punishment. I think there's no question that General Munir is with his back to the wall within the country. That he has a problem with Imran Khan, he has a problem with the diaspora, which has actually been campaigning against him across the world. And you have the trouble in Balochistan, trouble in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and trouble in even Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So in many ways, I think a conflict with India, a crisis with India, you can see that it is a tactic to unite the country. Pakistan has also been spoiling for a fight for a long time. I mean, that when things are normal, India is not paying attention. So therefore, they tend to feel that they're ignored. So for them, they relish this fight with India. Then you're seen as equal to India. The whole world is stepping back in. And India last 7-8 years, really turned its back on Pakistan, saying that, look, we have nothing to do with you. We don't want to waste time. So I think it's partly to counter that if you think Kashmir is normalizing, we'll show you it is not. If you think you can do things without us in Kashmir, we'll show you. So in a way, this is the way for them to force India onto their terrain. We must beat back this campaign. We must defeat them on these terms. But at the same time, don't forget your larger agenda, which is economic growth.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Indian Express Online. We have with us today Professor Rajamohan. He's of course a columnist with the Indian Express. His column is called Rajamandala. So we're coming at a particularly fraught diplomatic moment in the international relations moment. After the Pahalgam attack, there's been a lot of escalations, at least diplomatic, from both sides. There have been moves from India and Pakistan. The latest, I think India is suspended at the time, allowing Pakistan aircraft to fly over Indian airspace. Pakistan had done that earlier. The Indus Water Treaty is in abeyance, as is the Shimla Agreement and any other agreement officially. So, I want to draw first your attention to two pieces you've written for us recently. So the first was on the need for controlled escalation. As India deals with the aftermath of this Pahalgam attack, military options are on the table, more diplomatic options. To know what the results of that escalation will be, one, and how to escalate gradually. So this is the first set of moves. There'll be a second, there'll be a third for our leaders. How do we deal with that? And then I'll come later to the second one on General Munir. But Sir, how do you see that playing out, given the unpredictability of the Pakistan state and their own internal logic for the military state there?
No, my sense is, Pakistan economy is weak. Overall, there are multiple problems Pakistan has. Its military remains a reasonably effective force. So I don't think we should underestimate its capacity. It's one of the most experienced armies, though it has not won any war against anyone except its own people. But its capacity to fight should not be underestimated. So I think what happens is when we say escalation control, you get in the first blow, you must really expect Pakistan to do something in response. We saw that after the Balakot, Indian Air Force went in to bomb a terror camp. The next morning, the Pakistanis started retaliation. So you had the Air Force's skirmish. So I think it is not that, unlike many people seem to believe, some kind of a slam dunk for India. Just go in, you beat up and come back, and nothing will happen. So it's a strong army. The balance between the two in macro terms might be in India's favor, but in the theater, because you're not bringing the whole, we're not into prolonged war, we're not bringing everything together. So therefore, I think there's enough capability for Pakistan to fight back. Second, I think so how far do you go in this? Given the presence of nuclear weapons, we must expect that the rest of the world will come in. So it is not that you are not two boys free to fight each other. That's the history of this conflict over the last we've seen many crises since 1987, brass tacks, repeated crisis, and the world comes in. You already seen just in the last couple of days, the number of countries saying, be careful, be restrained, we should not fight. I mean, this is the kind of thing which all countries say. I mean, this is exactly what we were saying telling Russia and Ukraine, after all. We were telling this is not the era of war. Be peaceful, settle your disputes through dialogue. So this everyone will say. So that you must expect that, and some of it will it turn into pressure.
Yeah.
That is, it depends on the situation, how exactly things go. Sometimes in the past, the international pressure, worked in Pakistan's favor. Some other times, India has also managed to use that international pressure to its own advantage. Because if you say, look, if Pakistan has tried to use the pressure to say, look, and I think it's not surprising they're members of the Security Council now, non-permanent members. They've been feeling upset that, look, issue is no longer internationalized. So they were going to do something anyway to bring it up. So they're going to do the best in the UN Security Council. And there we saw China support them, while the US and France largely stayed with us. But those equations can change depending on what's happening on the ground. So therefore, I think we must expect the international pressures. And I think our diplomacy is clearly aimed at the last few days. Our Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, has been talking to all the non-permanent members of the Security Council, talking to all the major countries in the world and explaining to them what is at stake and why India wants to do what it is doing. So whether we might be self-convinced that it was an attack planned by Pakistan, but much of the world, you also have to create a dossier, circulate the dossier, tell other people, look, this is serious. Our allegation is not off the cuff, and that this is serious. So I think the legal work of convincing the rest of the world, legal political work, and the diplomatic work of managing the key players, that will also remain. And in all this, in the end, what matters is how effective is your use of force, and what is your overall strategy, and what is the strategy trying to achieve. That is, what is the purpose of? Is it only for retribution? Is it for destroying the terror infrastructure in Pakistan? Is it for creating new levels of deterrence? Or is it more fundamental, changing the behavior of Pakistan in fundamental ways? And I think those are all, barring the first one, easy to have retribution, but the rest of it are pretty difficult objectives. So how you marry military force to achieve those objectives is going to be challenging.
Thanks. Actually, you anticipated my next question on, because there is a sense. Do you think? I mean, of course, this is also it's the current moment that we're in, but there's a lot of. Sometimes you get the impression, if you watch too much TV, that every country is, accepted India's, that, this is Pakistan is responsible. I mean, because we have a history of dealing with this and we're so aware with, but exactly what so this diplomatic work, this dossier prepare, I mean, just to, like, post 26/11, there wasn't any visible military, there may have been covert operations, but we don't know of that. But, there wasn't this kind of public retaliation. Yet India had managed to convince much of the world and shown some sort of evidence, credible evidence, to say that Pakistan is responsible. Do you think? But the timeline on something like that might be slightly longer than the appetite now domestically, because there is a certain understandable anger and around that. So do you think how the government should? I mean, or do you think that is something that has to be taken into account, that bringing this, at least the international community on board somewhat, the big powers, will be a slightly longer timeline?
No, but I believe the dossier is being prepared. And my sense is during Mr. Jaishankar's talks with the other foreign ministers, he's laying out the case. What is India's political case and political legal case? That must be. So I suspect it'll take some time to put the dossier together. But my sense is there will be urgency to do it and convey it to most important countries of the world that this is what evidence and this is what has happened. And therefore, this is very much within our right for self-defense, and that we'll go ahead. Even when you have a perfect case, like in the case of 2008, see, no country is going to tell you, be my guest and go and bash up Pakistan.
Yeah, of course.
So even, for example, Russia was our best friend, but in Ukraine, we didn't say, go and hammer the Ukrainians out. We said, be restrained, don't use nuclear weapons, So I think some of it is pro forma. Countries say this, they have this, what they'll say. Like even think of a street fight in Delhi or where we are. If two guys are fighting on the road, I mean, everybody would want to pull them apart. So no one is going to come and say, or hold one guy and say, look, bash up the other guy.
Yeah.
you bash him. So I think that's natural, but I don't think we should let that come in the way too seriously. That we must engage, we must convince the rest of the world. But in the end, we have to do what we have to do. And this is not done in a very emotional way,
Right.
but in a way that calculating each step
Yeah.
effectively,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is what seems to have happened in the last few days, that India did not rush into a retaliation. It is now creating the ground. It is given a mandate to the armed forces to do what is best and to choose their time and place and modality. So I think the stage is set. But my sense is, given the anger, there is no question, and the fact that the brazenness of that attack, not just because the public is angry, but no state worth its salt can accept that kind of terror attack. So I think punishment is necessary, and I think India will exercise that punishment.
Yeah.
But I think with a full sense of managing the next steps,
Right.
because the problem always comes with India does one blow, Pakistan does another. Then how does it unfold? And I think gaming that is both the military part as well as the diplomatic part. Both have to be managed in the next few weeks.
So, I also wanted to talk briefly before we go on General Munir, on Asim Munir, who is one is he seems to be, at least, by your column in your recent column in the Express. Everyone read it; it's on the website. Recent column in the Express, as well as other places, is that he's in one sense domestically in quite a crisis. There are internal security threats both in Balochistan and on the western border with Pakistan. You have Imran Khan is actually credibly, I mean, whether one likes him or not as a politician, he was popular and he did credibly take the army head on. And he's now in jail on arguably trumped up charges. But even if they're not, I mean, the images that you jailed a popular political opponent who's taking on, as well as, I mean, lifestyles are in shambles, economy is more or less in shambles. There's no great. And India, we are protected against India is your gamble to stay. Do you think that that is what is happening here? That is that one of the reasons for the attack? And is it is there something particularly about General Asim Munir that, because maybe it's his ISI background, that makes him prone to this kind of action? Because tourists haven't been really harmed, historically. Maybe once, I think, in the 80s or 90s, not since then. Yeah.
Look, I think there's no question that General Munir is with his back to the wall within the country.
Yeah.
That he has a problem with Imran Khan. He has a problem with the diaspora, which has actually been campaigning against him across the world. And you have the trouble in Balochistan, trouble in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and trouble in even Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So in many ways, I think a conflict with India, a crisis with India, kind of, you can see that it is a tactic to unite the country. That when you have an external enemy, you try to use that to justify a lot of things at home. And I think even PTI was forced to, Imran Khan's party was forced to issue a statement saying we are even more hawkish than General Munir on India. So I think it's a way to rally around the domestic, opposition, domestic public opinion in his favor, and to distract attention from other issues to India, so that he kind of restores and fighting India and then talking about two-nation theory. In some way, he thinks it can give him the legitimacy to be the dominant actor in the Pakistan polity. So I think that's that's one factor. I think second, I think Pakistan has also been spoiling for a fight for a long time. I mean, that when things are normal, India is not paying attention. So therefore, they tend to feel that they're ignored. So for them, they relish this fight with India. Then you're seen as equal to India. The whole world is stepping back in, and that you're arguing with India, tutu mama, as we say. That this is what they want. This is what they want to engage, draw India into this permanent kind of conflict. And India last 7-8 years, really turned its back on Pakistan, saying that, look, we have nothing to do with you. We don't want to waste time. So I think it's partly to counter that if you think Kashmir is normalizing, we'll show you it is not. If you think you can do things without us in Kashmir, we'll show you. So in a way, this is the way for them to force India onto their terrain, onto the platform and issues where they're most comfortable with. And I think that's a challenge for India. I think we must beat back this campaign. We must defeat them on these terms. But at the same time, don't forget your larger agenda, which is economic growth. I mean, you are in the middle of negotiating trade deals with US, UK, and European Union. Our Prime Minister today is in talking to Bombay, the creative economy, getting the entire Indian creative industry to. So I think our agenda is much bigger,
Right,
which is growth, which is India wants to become a major power in the international system. Well, for Pakistan, it's always how do you trip up India?
right.
How do you put India down? How do you
Yeah,
pull India down? India has pulled away from significantly from Pakistan over the last 30 years because of the economic growth. So I think
yeah.
for them, that objective of being an obstacle to India is their objective. And I think any conflict situation gives them that. It's back to the kind of normal thing those of those are the younger people in India who are not familiar with it. If you
Yeah.
go back before 2019, for long years, if you've been 80s and 90s, the only issue we talked about was Kashmir because Kashmir was burning. There was a constant terrorism in India. So therefore, whole focus was on what to do with Pakistan. How do you deal with Pakistan? Which is where Pakistanis want to take us back. But India also wants to, while beating down the challenge from Pakistan, India cannot forget its longer term, higher ambitions and goals.
Right, so, but again, final question, someone had written for us, I think it was a former diplomat to Pakistan, and that saying much of what we've discussed today, but also that unfortunate Pakistan is an unfortunate geographical reality, if nothing else, and a historical reality. They are the neighbor. We have that even for the sort of great long-term growth, not even if it's this. And the problem with Pakistan is it is so dysfunctional. It's not like you're dealing with one government or even a stable military government that for the next 30 years there'll be some continuity in policy. Unlike is the even after this crisis is over, is there a way? I mean, in the long term, is what is the negotiated solution the only way, or who do you negotiate with? Is that question still alive as long as Pakistan continues to internally be in such disarray as it is now?
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, I think one of the great tragedies of partition, I mean, the way the geography worked out. Today, all the Indian airlines that had to fly to, Europe or UK or to Central Asia, will have to take four more hours to circumvent Pakistan. It's a thin strip,
Yeah,
but in a way, it completely blocks our access to the Western geographies. So, which means actually we don't have direct access to Afghanistan. Iran, of course, has sea, therefore we can reach out to them. So, in a way, that the trouble that it can create, that strip of land, while it is getting poorer, today Pakistan's per capita GDP is down to $1,500. I mean, India is around $3,000. Is in a way Pakistan has done very badly in economy, but I think the sheer fact of location, its ability to be a nuisance for India, to disturb India. I mean, that's always there. I mean, that doesn't need too much genius or cleverness, which they do all the time. So therefore, I think for us, India, as you rightly said, over the longer term, how do you deal with this problem? Because if you see, do we negotiate? Yes, India did negotiate. In fact, both Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, before that Mr. Vajpayee, and Mr. Modi himself he went to Pakistan on short notice, announced a strategy, look, let's work together. But in a sense, the army is not ready for it. In fact, we must also remember these civilian leaders, whether it is the PPP or of Zardari or of Nawaz Sharif, they've repeatedly said, even 3 years ago when Nawaz Sharif came back, he said, look, we must have good relations with the neighbors. Let's not fight with Afghanistan and India. But then they're not in control. That's a problem. As you said, the army is in control. And their domination of Pakistani society depends on a permanent conflict with India. And I think that's where the challenge is. How do we circumvent that central factor? How do we produce, over long term, it's not possible overnight, to produce internal change where a more democratic Pakistan that is willing to, on its own interests, seeks peace with India and Afghanistan. At this point, we're not there, unfortunately.
Well, sir, we hope things change in the long term. Thank you so much, sir. We'll talk again soon. Everyone, read the pieces. They're on the IndianExpress.com.